don't go ahead and pull up this presentation so you can make notes if you want to while she's speaking. If you don't want to make notes, or you can just jot some down and just follow along with her up here. This is Laura Eason. She is the chaplain at East Alabama Medical Center. We're so excited to have her. So she's going to talk to you today about cultural and spiritual sensitivity. So let's give her a hand. And look at so forward to this. It's an awesome presentation.
Wake up! So I'm just curious. I would love to know a little bit about, I understand y'all are all first semester nursing students, is that right? Find a partner or a trio or something and just share with your partner or people sitting around you why you want to be a nurse. What's the main reason? What drew you to nursing school? Be honest. Don't everybody say, I want to help people. Who would like to share something that one of your partners said that you think is pretty interesting? Anybody? Anybody? Yes?
My partner did it as a dare.
Okay, that's great, a dare. I like that, I like that. Others? Who thinks they have one of the most common answers? Share one of the most common answers. What do you think?
I need a job.
Need a job. How many people need a job? All right, perfect. What's another common answer? Family. Like family wanted you to be a nurse, said you should be a nurse, or okay, all right. You'd make or taking care of family, all right? You would make a great nurse. You've been taking care of family, all right? Anything else?
Challenging and rewarding.
Challenging and rewarding. Good answer, good answer. All these are good. Any others? Who feels like they have the gift of compassion? Who feels like they're a pretty compassionate person? You better all learn the gift of compassion to be a nurse, because I think that's one of the essential things there. So, all right, well, I want to put a disclaimer out first. This video that I'm about to show you is really dated. It also is, I think it's funny, but it's supposed to serve a point. It's obviously nurses in a hospital setting pretending to be actors, and they really should stick to nursing. But it kind of proves a point. So we're going to see if we can make this work. If not, somebody that's more technologically savvy. Go forward. There we go. Here we go. All right.
Make sure the second light is the second
All
light.
right, this is actually
All
not
the
the
lights
video
the
that
second
I
one.
quite think of, but this is so good. This just kind of introduces it. All right, now, here we go.
Good morning, Court. Good morning.
Hear it?
Hi, I'm Nurse Rita. I'm going to be doing your vitals this morning. Okay. How are you feeling? I'm feeling well. Okay, well, I'm just going to listen to your lungs first. Okay. Turn it around. Oh my God. What are these marks on your back? Are you being abused? What? Well, I'm a mandatory reporter. I have to tell people about this. What's going on, what? I gotta tell people, you're being abused. You need to be protected. You need to be in a shelter. No. You're looking to get away from your husband?
Don't.
I gotta go. I can't do this.
You watch the Olympics, the NBC reporters were going crazy the Summer Olympics because Michael Phelps came out with all those, and they were like, "What's those things on his arm? Did he get a tattoo?" and all this kind of stuff. And then the next day they were like, "Oh, that's cupping," and they were experts. And 24 hours later. I'm curious, has anybody ever done this? Yeah, there is. Does it hurt?
It's brutal.
Is it? I've heard it hurts.
For so long.
That's what I've heard.
It looks like an octopus.
Anybody else do, somebody else do it back here? Does anybody else? It's a bonus.
Good morning. Oh, good morning. Hi. Oh, my name's Coy. Oh, hi, Coy. How are you? I'm good, thank you. I'm going to be doing morning vitals with you this morning. Okay. So I'm just going to first start with your lungs. Okay. From the back. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. I noticed some interesting marks on your back. What are those from?
Oh, I'm Cambodian. It's part of my culture. We do a method of form of pain relief called cupping. I wasn't feeling well a couple days ago, and I had my husband do it for me.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I know it looks a little.
So I'm just worried about signs and symptoms of infection. So I can tell you about those later.
Okay.
So just in case it bruises in, you'll understand what the signs and symptoms are, and you can come to us and we'll treat you for that.
Oh, no, it's fine.
But thank you for telling me
No,
about
no
that.
problem.
I'll know that for the next time.
Okay.
Thank you. Nurse, I'm going to go in, I'm doing my rounds, and I'm going to tell this patient she has terminal cancer. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, no, good.
All right. Patient, you have terminal cancer. You are going to die.
Glad y'all are laughing. At least you get it.
Hello, Nurse Megan. What can I help you with? I'm going into this patient's room and I'm making my rounds, and I have to give her bad news. She has terminal cancer. Anything you want to add to that?
We definitely need to wait because she's Ethiopian, and in their culture, you need to tell the family spokesperson.
Really?
But first we have to go to the ethics committee to make sure that's okay because it could be a legal violation.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you're a nurse on my floor.
Thank you. Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Go to the ethics committee, all that stuff.
Good morning. Okay, Miss Brenda, I'm going to be your nurse today.
Yeah, congratulations on your new baby, Mom.
Oh, thanks.
Well, this is first, isn't it? I'm gonna need you to fill out your name here, Mom. And then when Dad gets here later, you can just have him fill it out. There's no doubt.
What do you mean, big for that? You have a baby, lady.
No, we're a same-sex couple.
What?
So there's no doubt.
What? How does that work?
Under the father's name. What the hell is that? Birthday number? Okay, so you the daddy? Are you the father figure? No. I'm the mother, and she's a mother too. Doesn't that confuse your baby? No. Wow. Okay, well, you figure it out. When you're done, let me know.
likes this song about earrings?
Good morning, ladies. How are you? I'm Brenda. I'll be here today. How do you feel? Pretty good. Look at you, baby. Hi, baby. There. Did you like the berry peanut? Maybe berry. Yeah? Okay. I like berry for that little guy. Alright, I have the birth certificate here, and I need you chronological now to, fill out your information, and no rush, I can always come back for it later. And you, if you're planning to adopt, you can always, have that done later. Okay, I'm sure you know that already.
Yeah, well, thanks for telling me, because some people don't know.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it. I'm just doing my job. So fill it out when you're ready, and I'll get back to you done. Okay, have you guys decided what nurse is gonna call you from? Yeah? Okay, well, have a good day. You can call out this evening, and I'll take care of it. Feel the world at home and finish it with love. From apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I'd like to see the world go by, all standing hand in hand. And remember, go through the hills, longing through mountain land. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. La 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 la.
Okay, so, one of the things, well, first of all, what did y'all see in that video? What was the, couple of things just kind of jump out at you? Anything in particular?
She was totally clueless.
Yeah, the nurses were totally clueless, that's true. Which one? Which one? First, second, or third vignette?
All three of
All
them.
three of them, that's true, good point. Did you notice anything weird about the actresses and actors at all?
They were all different cultures.
Right. Nobody noticed that the Ethiopian was also the partner in the third one? It's the same people. And then also the nurse in the first one was the doctor in the second one, and so it's the same people over there, so you okay, good. I was like, why did they use, surely there are more people that can do this. I really like the video for the things in between, and so we just kind of lived through the other, but would you think somebody would get fired if they did that today? Probably so, or at least there would be, a major complaint to the hospital and just for lack of sensitivity, lack of understanding, lack of respect and stuff. And so, all right, I feel like I have the best job in the whole wide world. I love being a hospital chaplain. Just to tell you a little bit about my background, when I was growing up, I had a lot of family members say to me, you need to go in the medical field. You'd make a great nurse, you'd make a great doctor, you need to go in the medical field. So I thought that's what I was going to do all along. And so I went to that school up in Tuscaloosa, that other school that people don't like around here very much. But anyway, and I was I was pre-med to begin with, and then decided I heard about being a nurse anesthetist, and I thought that's what I want to do, or a nurse practitioner, and so decided to change into nursing school, and then organic chemistry came along. How many people taking organic chemistry? Boy, is it fun. But anyway, so I thought, maybe I need to relook at some of this. And about that same time, I'd been all of my, through high school and college, early college, I was working at churches as a youth minister, just a part-time person, and summer youth worker and stuff. And so more and more folks started talking to me about maybe you need to think about seminary, that would be really cool. And so that phone call to my parents, the end of my junior year, was really fun. Okay, I'm not gonna go to nursing school. I'm gonna change majors, and I'm gonna go to seminary. And they were like, what? But I've always been fascinated with the medical field. And I think God has quite a sense of humor, because it feels like, in some ways, so for a long time, I worked in local churches as doing youth and mission. I love mission work and stuff. And then this opportunity came along to kind of stop what I was doing in the local church and basically recreate myself and go back to school. And for a chaplaincy, you have to do something called clinical pastoral education. And so I went to St. Francis over in Columbus and did a full-year residency, did internship first one summer and then a full-year residency. And then the position at East Alabama came open, and so they called, and I said, sure. And so I started about 4 years ago, and I was here about a month. Well, let me back up. Before I decided to do that residency at St. Francis, I had a big argument with God. And I was like, when I'm trying to discern, what I'm supposed to do, God's will for my life, I have to go to the wilderness. And so, anybody hiked any of the Appalachian Trail before? I love hiking. I've done the Camino de Santiago in Spain, the 500-mile trek across Spain. I've done the Grand Canyon from South Rim to North Rim. So I started doing some of the Appalachian Trail, and I decided I needed to get far away. So I flew up to New York, got on a train, went with my backpack, and got off the train as it crossed the trail at some point, and started hiking. So I hiked through New York and Connecticut and Massachusetts and got into Vermont. We called it Vermud that summer because it was the summer of 2013, more rain than ever before. And but I hiked about 200 miles by myself. That was probably not real smart. Appalachian Trail is not real safe these days. But anyway, bears, lions and tigers and bears and stuff like that out there. But anyway, I had a real long discussion with God. And I just kept saying, you're the one that put this passion for mission in me. And you're telling me, to just leave the local church, and I'm a United Methodist, by the way, United Methodist pastor, and do, mission stuff. And then, no, now you're saying do chaplain stuff. And what am I supposed to do here? And I clearly kept hearing chaplain. And I was like, but I'll never get to do a mission trip again. And right before while I was doing some part-time stuff at the hospital, when I was here in Auburn, at Auburn Methodist, I got to lead 2 trips to Bolivia, mission trips, and just loved it. And I thought, you finally got this spark back with me, and I don't understand. And so I hear chaplaincy, I'm like, okay, be obedient. So I go to St. Francis, I do the residency, the job comes open at East Alabama, I take the job. I was here 1 month, and one of the vice presidents said she wanted to take me to lunch. And so we went to lunch, and she said, so tell me how you're going to incorporate mission into overall chaplaincy and stuff. And I'm like, I'm thinking she means like my philosophy of pastoral care. So I go into this whole, whatever. And she lets me talk for about 5 minutes. And then she goes, it's not exactly what I meant. And I said, I'm sorry, what do you mean? She said, like mission. And I said, what do you mean by mission? And she said, well, East Alabama has a long history of doing mission trips and outreach to the community and all this stuff. And I had no idea. She said, well, we haven't done anything in 5 years. And we had some issues with it. And so we all of the leadership, we decided that we want to move all of the mission and outreach under chaplaincy. And I was like, have you seen my resume? She was like, nope, never looked at it. And I was like, I've led 50 international mission trips and all this stuff. I'd love to do that. And so one of the things that I've gotten to do is we send trips to Ecuador for surgery. We're building a hospital in the Dominican Republic. We are doing a whole lot of stuff here in our community. We've done a lot of disaster relief. We're collecting supplies right now that all y'all can collect for Panama City. We're about to start sending teams down there. And I get to lead all of those things. And so what's funny to me is that God has quite a sense of humor, because it's like my whole world is colliding. You know, my love for the medical field, my nursing background of wanting to be a nurse, wanting to do all that. I'm now in a hospital setting, and I get to do pastoral care, be a minister, at the same time, I get to do a lot of mission service. So I'm like, yep, God knew exactly what God was doing, and so I'm glad I kind of answered that calling. One of the things that's fascinating to me in my career, in my ministry, is I've gotten to travel a lot to a lot of different places. I don't know if y'all have a list. I've got a list. I had a list for a long time of things I wanted to do in life. And the number one thing on the list, and I made it probably 30 years ago, it's a long time ago. The number one thing was I wanted to go to all 50 states and 50 countries by the time I was 50. That was number one on the list. And I made it. For my 50th birthday, I went to Hawaii. And that was the last state that I hadn't been to. And by then, I'd already been to 55 countries. And so I've now been to 62 countries and going back to multiple states and stuff. But one of the things that I really love about traveling is getting to meet people of different cultures, different nationalities, different religions. And so over the years, I've collected a bunch of stuff. And one of the things that that I worried about with a class like this is I'm afraid some of the things in the PowerPoint, some of the things you're going to hear is you're going to translate that to mean it's okay to stereotype. And it is not okay to stereotype. It is not okay to generalize. You can't say, well, they are Korean, and so as a patient, so that means that they don't know whatever. You know, you can't do that. Every patient that you have is going to be an individual, and you need to treat them like an individual. But the point that we're trying to get across here today is the importance of respect. And so I need a couple of volunteers. Who has seen what's on this table? Anybody paid attention to it? Who thinks they know some of the stuff, what they are? A couple of volunteers. Come on down. Anybody that thinks they can tell a class what some of these things are? Come on, don't be shy. Come on.
Wait, I'm putting shoes on.
Come on.
I'll do it. Oh, there you go, thank you.
Come on down.
Thank you, there we go.
It's just a fun thing. They're not going to get graded for this. Okay, you pick it up. All right, hold up, turn it around.
Okay, this looks like something that you can sort of see in Israel, I may be wrong, but it is,
Anybody know who that is?
it's Paul. It's Paul,
All right.
the Apostle Paul. And, the Orthodox, I don't want to get into this,
It
but.
actually came from Turkey.
Turkey, okay,
Turkey.
but Paul was in Turkey.
That's right.
So that's
All right.
Paul.
Okay. This is an icon.
This is a
Usually-
menorah, an icon, and,
Icon,
what's
that's
the other one with the three dimensions, the 3D?
I don't know.
We'll talk about
That's
this
fine.
later. This is a menorah, this is
From what religion?
Israel Jewish.
Judaism. Okay, great. Hindu, great. Great. You know what any of those gods are? Hold them up.
I can say a couple, but I don't know if they match the figurine.
Who do you think, who's the one with the elephant head? Ganesh? Yes. Anybody know what this one is? What'd you say? No? Man, I can see it really well. Vishnu, all right. Who's that dude? Buddha,
I've
all
never
right.
seen a bobblehead Jesus.
Please don't go to your pastors and say the chaplain is sacrilegious. She brought in a bobblehead Jesus. The chaplain, quick story about the bobblehead Jesus. The chaplain before me had a bobblehead Jesus, and when a particular staff area like ICU or ER, if they had a particularly hard day, had a couple of deaths or something, he would take his big bobblehead Jesus and he'd, put it in the nurse's station. And it became kind of a symbol of, hey, Jesus is watching after us, and we've had a hard day or whatever. Well, then when he left, everybody wanted the bobblehead Jesus. All the different departments of the hospital, and so they had a bidding war. And CVICU won it. They got it, and they donated a bunch of money to their favorite charity for that. And so they had the bobblehead Jesus. Well, other departments wanted it, and so they would kidnap bobblehead Jesus. If they were having a bad day. And so I was like, we can't have people kidnapping Jesus, you know. And so we had a friend of mine who's a nurse in one of the units, and he had a really tough. He had blood clots, had a heart attack, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, every complication you can have as he was getting better, he had. And so I went to CVICU and I said, can I borrow a bobblehead? Jesus, I need to take it up to his room. And so every time they were then his wife and he was like, would you please go get a bobblehead? We're having a tough time right now. So finally I bought him one. I ordered one and then I ordered another one for my office that I'm going to start handing out. So that's bobblehead. All right, what else did you find? That's Mary.
That's very, is that from Russia?
It is. This is from Russia. Icon from Russia. What do you notice about? Look at Jesus. What's kind of weird about Jesus?
Is he an adult in Mary's arms?
Yes, he's kind of like a Jesus man. I don't know. It's not a baby. Man Jesus. Yeah. It's like teenage Jesus almost. Most of the icons in Russia show when Mary is holding Jesus. Jesus is kind of like the man-child.
I don't know what religion this is. No, it's been there.
Yes, you're right. This is, if I can do it right, there we go. It's, anybody want to guess? I got it in Nepal. Give it away at all.
Is it Buddhist?
Buddhist. It's a Buddhist prayer wheel. It's a Buddhist prayer wheel.
These are prayer, but I don't think that's Islamic. But
Nope, this is prayer beads.
Rosemary?
It's from Greek Orthodox prayer beads. All right.
this thing that intrigues us is this.
Who said that? Somebody said what this was. Rosary. Rosary. All right. Y'all know what this is? Show that.
This is African.
Nope. Anybody know what that is?
That is
Hispanic.
Hispanic?
Day of the Dead. In Mexico. Day of the Dead. This is Buddha, right? Who's this right here? Who's this? Nope.
It's also
That's exactly right. Those are all Buddhas. Those are all different Buddhas. Yeah. So sort of this is the meditating prayer Buddha, and then the regular Buddha. Or what was the other thing that y'all were asking about? That looks disgusting. Anybody know what this is first? What's this? See any symbols? You recognize any symbols? Nope. Anybody? Everyone guess what these are?
Celtic.
Celtic, close, but wrong continent. Aztec.
Nordic.
This is an Aztec calendar. Same region, different. Begins with an M. Mayan. Exactly.
Islamic.
Yes, Islamic. Most people don't know this one. There are no Islamic symbols, that people have and stuff. And so this is one of the few that you're allowed to have. And a lot of cab drivers put this, if they're Muslim, put this in their cab for safety and stuff. But it's Islamic. All right, any others? One other that I want to, what's that? It's a Hindu wedding invitation. We had a pharmacist, a resident at the hospital, and arranged marriages are alive and well. And I got a call one day, and the pharmacist said, "Laura, we need to come see you now." And I was like, I said, she said, are you busy? I said, yes, I've got somebody in my office. She said, this is important, I need to see you now. I'm like, well, come right in. And so she brings in a young woman, and the young woman had her head down, wouldn't look at me, and so the pharmacist, her instructor, was kind of telling me the story, and she said, her parents are on their way from Mississippi. They're driving right now to pick her up. They just found out late last night, they have been in the process of arranging a marriage for her, and have been working on it for a while with a cardiologist in some other part of the country, and on, and they just found out that she's been secretly dating an American boy, not Hindu, for 8 years. And they just found out. They were pretty upset. And I'm like, great, okay. So we had quite a day preparing for it, and then when her dad and mom wouldn't come in the hospital, I had them tell them at the front desk that the pharmacy where she was room 2024 at the time, which was my office. So dad and little brother come up, and we had about a 3-hour conversation. It was about a year-long process of, first they disowned her, it was a mess, real mess. And finally, after they met him, they met his parents, a long healing process, lots of letters back and forth. I got invited to their wedding in Mississippi, in Oxford, Mississippi. It's the nicest, it was the biggest, it was a 12-hour event. I went to 3 hours of it. I was like, that's enough, I can only handle 3 hours. So I went to the big ceremony, and but I mean, it was amazing. The Hindu priest came from Texas. I guess there's not a Hindu priest in Mississippi. But anyway, it was a really cool thing, and they now live in North Carolina and are living happily ever after. And mom and dad and everybody. And the wedding was originally supposed to be in India, and he converted to Hinduism, and it was a really neat thing. And one of the sad things is the wedding was already being planned, and this is something that I did not know. This is something I didn't know, but her family was a priestly caste, and she had 5 cousin girls. So there were other uncles and had daughters, and if she married out of her caste and someone who was American and not Hindu and all known, that her cousins would not be allowed to marry within their caste. And so when the uncles found out about it and the grandparents found out about it, they said, you can't have the wedding here. So they all came over to Mississippi for the wedding, but they couldn't do it there. And which kind of broke her heart, but then when it was all said and done, she said she was glad she got to do it in Mississippi because all of his family got to be there and experience the culture and stuff. So, all right, 2 things that y'all didn't mention. You want to take a guess? What? African? Wrong continent. They're also used in religious ceremonies, and then some percussionists really like them.
South America?
What? No, not Thailand. Think South America.
Guatemala, Ecuador.
Peru. What's in Peru? Llamas is correct. What do these look like? They're llama toenails. And people are like, why is she touching them? No. They're used in a lot of religious ceremonies in Peru. And also they're used as percussion instruments, you know. So that's my favorite one. Okay. Everybody be really quiet. Anybody know what this is? Buddhist? Good job. Buddhist what? Anybody know? What'd you say?
Meditation.
What'd you say?
Start of meditation.
Okay, yeah, it's a Buddhist singing bowl. It's a Buddhist singing bowl. I got a set of 5 of these. They're brass. They're not gonna do it. Let's see if the sound changes. No, I'm just kidding. different tones, and they supposedly have healing powers. One is for the heart, one is for your stomach, one is for your chest, and then one is for your head. And so if you have ailments and stuff, that's my favorite one because it's easy to carry around. I also buy, whenever I go on trips and stuff, I usually buy Christmas presents for my nephews, and I'm pretty much a pacifist, but I love to like buy knives and swords and things for my nephews. I don't know why. My sisters are like, why do you keep bringing these weapons? I'm like, God, I have to leave my boys that are my nephews, you know. So anyway, I bought these Gurkha knives. Who knows what a Gurkha knife is? It's one of those curved kind of swords that they use in Nepal. Well, anyway, when you get to the airport, I have all this stuff in a bag. We're checking the bag, and it's going to be $100 to check this bag. And it's just a little carry-on. I'm like, I'll just carry it on. Carry it on. We just get to, because I'm not thinking we're running to the, trying to make a plan. We get to the X-ray, and the bag goes through, the backpack goes through, and the bag goes through. The bag comes back through, and she's pointing, she speaks no English. And I'm like, what? And she's like, she takes it back through and brings it back, and she's like, and they're like, what do you have in your bag? And I'm like, singing bowls. I have a bunch of singing bowls. They're brass, they're round, and she's like, and she just keeps, and she's nice enough, and she starts to unzip it, and she's like, well, and I said, it's 5 singing bowls. And you know how you start talking louder, thinking she's going to understand. I'm trying to pantomime, and I think that's what's so heavy. And then she just keeps doing this, and finally I went, knives! I have knives in there! And she nodded, and she unzips it and pulls them out, and she's like, if I had not said knives, they would have confiscated them. But because I said what they were, so they wrap them up in a big thing or whatever, and they give them to the pilot. And the pilot puts them in the cockpit, and then when we get home, when we get back to Atlanta, the pilot brings them off the plane and hands them to me because they didn't want to put them on a conveyor belt or anything. So I got all those knives home for my nephews and my brother-in-law and stuff. So those are the singing bowls made and the knives made. All right. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about here is before you. I promise we're not going to go through all this stuff like crazy. Where's my little clicker go? Here it is. So one size does not fit all. You have to realize that there's lots of different variety when you're talking about different religions, different cultural things like that. So these are some of our objectives. Those are all listed for you. We're going to watch this really quick. Maybe, yes. This should be on a test. I don't know if it will be on a test, but it should be on a test. So, when you think about cultural competence, So, the golden rule. What is the golden rule? What? Close. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Okay, so pretty much every major religion has some version of the golden rule. If you look at this, I don't know if you have this slide up on your computer or in the handout, you can't really see it up here, but all of them have some sort of version of it. That, like Jainism says one should treat all creatures in the world as one would like to be treated. Judaism, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole Torah. All of the rest is commentary. Islam, not one of you truly believers until you wish for others what you wish for yourself. And then Zoroastrianism is do not do unto others whatever is injurious to yourself. And so you've got the golden rule. Who knows what the silver rule is? Anybody know what anybody ever heard of the silver rule?
Is it love your neighbor as yourself?
That's a good one, but nope. Good guess, though. Good guess. Oh, wait, hold on.
Do unto others as they would have you.
Yes, good reader. So, do unto others as they would have you do unto them. What's the difference?
How they want to be treated.
How they want to be treated, right? We had I recently got my MBA, and with my cohort, the class, one of the teachers were doing a thing on communication. You had to go on Blackboard and do all these discussion things or whatever. And one of the things she said is, what's better, the golden rule or the silver rule? So people were all chiming in or whatever. And we had one of the students said, the silver rule, by far. I'm from the north, she says, and I don't like to be hugged. And you Southerners, you love to hug everybody. And just because you like to hug doesn't mean I want to be hugged. And secondly, what's the thing with all this sweetie and honey and baby, and I'm not your sweetie and honey and baby, you know, but she was just, you know, or whatever. And other people were like, no, the golden rules work, you know, so everybody was just kind of chiming in. So I'm just reading all this stuff, just kind of sitting back, because I'm thinking, I'm the minister in the group, I'm not going to jump right in, and I'm going to see what other people say. So I hadn't posted anything yet, and one of my other colleagues, I think he was probably tired one night, he wasn't thinking straight, but anyway, he started, you know, and his basic paraphrase was this. The silver rule is, you know, crazy, he didn't use that word. And then he said, I think the golden rule has worked for centuries, we should do that, but there is a limit. And he goes on to say how he does not understand, that he understands that there are, you know, what's the deal, and this is his words, what's the deal with a Muslim woman coming into this hospital and only wanting female nurses, and that's discrimination against male nurses, and just because she's married, and I don't understand, you know, and just because they're a whim, and she kept using the word whim. And then he said, that's like somebody coming in to the emergency room, and the hospital just has to cater to every whim, and da-da-da-da. And it's like a patient coming into the emergency department and thinks they're a dog, and they have a collar on their neck, and they want to be fed out of a dog bowl on the floor, and they only want to be barked to and stuff like that. It's like the same thing. Okay. I'm reading this, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just like, steam's probably coming out. And I did what my mama taught me, don't ever respond when you're angry. And so I waited 24 hours. I couldn't sleep that night. I was like, this is somebody that's a friend of mine, and this is what he believes. And you know, and I sit down at my computer the next morning, and I'm like, take a deep breath. you know, whatever. I was just like, yeah, you know, and then I delete. And then I wrote it again, and I was a little calmer. And then I wrote it a third time, I was a little calmer. And basically what I said back was, his name, I know you were probably just trying to get a rise out of the chapel. Well, you succeeded. And then I went on to say, I'm offended that you are calling someone's sacred belief a whim. And went on about, explained a little bit about why Muslim women feel like they can't be touched or seen by someone who's not their husband, a male, is not their husband, and then went how it is of eternal significance. I think the other example he had given was a Jehovah's Witness who couldn't receive blood products, and it would save their life, and da-da-da-da, and I was just like, and again, a whim, he kept using the word whim. And so I said, this is of eternal significance, this has to do with their soul and their eternal life and their belief and da-da-da. And so then, when I said, and as far as the patient goes that presents to the emergency room, we would take them right to the psychiatric unit. You know, I mean, obviously there's some mental health issues there, and they need some help. That is not something that we're gonna participate in as a professional. You know, our nurses would not treat them like a dog, etc. Well, he didn't show up for class the next day. I think I wrote it that morning, and class was at noon. And so, as I walk into class, I have about 25 other classmates are all like, "Ah, the chaplain got," you know, whatever. And the professor's like, "What are y'all talking about?" Like, "Read this post, read this post." And he didn't show up for class that day. And they were all like, "The chaplain ran him off." And I'm like, "No," so I'm calling him, I'm texting him. He's like, no, my kid's sick. It's fine, it's fine. And he was like, I deserved all that. He said, it was fine. But that's when I realized we need to do a better job of helping people to understand. We have taught our staff, I think in hospitals, and we've taught our nursing students the what is important, what to be aware of, but I don't know that we've always focused on the why. And why it's important. And again, for him to even think it's a whim. We also, I had a couple of patients. One was Islamic, and they were in the ICU, and they were really close to death. I'd gotten to know the family pretty well, and the mother and the wife and the daughter, and the nursing staff was like, what do we need to do? And just coming close, and I said, okay, we called the Islamic Center at Auburn University. There's some men that are going to come. We need to kind of suspend the rules and let them come in and read from the Quran. And so I had prayer robes available and Qurans available for them to be able to read the prayer as someone takes their last breath. And I sat with the mom and the wife and the daughter in the little consultation room. And right before they came, I said, can we turn, the staff was like, what else do we need to do? What else do I said, turn the bed. Can we turn the bed to face Mecca? And they were like, yeah, which way is Mecca? And I'm like, east, just go east, you know. And so we turned the bed, we had to move the vent, I mean, everything, but they were willing to do that. And as the guys then, after they read from the Quran and the man passed away, the male nurses that were there that day, I said, can they assist you? Can they help these guys that came from the Islamic Center? Can they help wash the body and prepare the body? And they were like, yeah, we've never had that happen. I said, it's part of their culture. They really need, it's part of their religious belief. And they were like, sure, absolutely. So about an hour later, as they left, each one of those guys gave me a hug. And then they said, and I didn't know them at all. And they said, we were so worried on our way to the hospital, not knowing what kind of welcome, if we would be welcome or what we would see here. And thank you so much for making us feel and respecting our beliefs and our religion, making us feel welcome. Another situation where a Hindu family, a gentleman was there a long time in our ICU, unconscious, and we would help get vegetarian meals to the wife and the daughter. The daughter would stay every night, the mom would stay during the day, the wife would stay during the day. And so one of the things that happened is they wanted to take him in Hindu, when I went to India and also in Nepal, they believe in, cremation is a big deal. And the oldest son is supposed to actually help assist in the cremation and lead the funeral procession down to the river where they burn the body. And so they wanted to get this gentleman back to India. And so we started helping for them to arrange. The older brother was going to arrange for the air vac, and they couldn't get in there. And so they ended up, he just wasn't medically stable to go. So the family flew in the older brother. And so, because he only had a daughter, he didn't have a son. And so we called around to several of the funeral homes in town. This is all before the man died. Called around to several funeral homes and found one of our funeral homes that has the cremation center, the crematorium, right there on site. And they were willing to suspend their rules and allow the older brother, when he arrived, and he made it in time before his brother passed away, to actually be the one that pushed him into the, was in the room there where the crematorium was. And again, that's one of those things that the mom and the, sorry, I keep saying mom because I keep referring to her as your mom. So the daughter and her mom, still to this day, write me letters, and I've been invited to several things. And that's that's the couple, those are the folks that I ended up going to and asking a lot during that whole year with that pharmacist to help me to understand the importance of arranged marriages and why this is such a shameful thing for the family, and help me to understand this in 2016. Why this. So I can help the family to understand, because I didn't want them to disown them. So anyway, those are a couple of things that I think that sparked this class. The other thing that I figured out is you've got, this is what people call the bronze rule that Confucius says. Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. So don't do to others what you don't want done to you. I think we kind of have, when we're thinking about cultural and religious sensitivity, I personally think we need to have a balance of the gold and silver and bronze rule. Okay, this thing that I handed out, before you can truly be culturally competent and understand, you got to do this, that whole Michael Jackson man in the mirror deal. You got to figure out what your own stuff is. And so hopefully you've taken a glance at it. We're not going to have time for you to fill it out right now, but I want you to, before the night's over, for you to fill it out. Just go through the questionnaire and look at some of the things, because I think you need to be aware of your own biases and how you label yourself and how we tend to label others. We tend to stereotype without even thinking we are. But in the medical profession, especially the bedside nurse, you're going to be faced with all kinds of situations where you need to be able to keep a smile on your face. It may be something you don't necessarily understand, like cupping or agree with, same-sex, whatever it is, but you need to be able to treat everybody with respect. You need to be able to treat everybody with respect and patience. So take just a minute to do that. All right, this is for your eyes only. Don't share this with anybody. This is for you to just hang on to and just to be, again, to be aware of your own stuff. All right? Culture. When we think about culture, and that the little video showed it best, but all the different things, but it's everything about values, behaviors, language, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, socioeconomic status, all of these things. And it has to do with food they eat, their understanding of government, housing, language, economy. It's everything. It's everything. And then how this is, again, all of these things affect healthcare. All of these things you'll be exposed to. You need to tap the top and it moves. So anyway, you've got all of that. All right, so here, the little story here, Amish. How many people, anybody from Pennsylvania or been to Pennsylvania or know where Pennsylvania is on the map? Okay. All right, so Amish country, right? Why would this be a problem? Can you read that? Why would that be a problem? Why would that Amish couple be upset with that social worker? She's just doing her job. She's helping them enroll in Medicaid.
They don't believe in that.
That's right. That's not a part of their belief system, okay? That's not a part of their culture. And so they were offended. They were offended at that. What do they believe? They, within their community, help each other, okay? They don't believe in seeking assistance. And so what she ends up doing is just make sure that they have transportation home, and that they will reach out to their friends and neighbors in their Amish community to help out with that situation. All right, So they don't believe in what would be considered welfare. All right, this is that stereotype kind of disclaimer. Each culture, each individual, I mean, they're an individual, they're unique. And so just because someone may dress the same, sharing the same language, a nationality, or religion doesn't mean that they're the same, okay? All right, in the PowerPoint, and we don't have enough time to go through all this stuff because I love my stories too much, but I've got a notebook in my office. It's about this thick, 3-ring binder, and it goes through every nationality, every religion, and we just pulled a few out for this. And part of it is because our community is small, but with Auburn University, we're getting more and more diverse. With Southern Union, we're getting more and more diverse. With the Kia plant, more and more diverse. With a lot of the automotive kind of things happening and the growth of the Auburn, Opelika, and Lee County area in general. And so we're learning, but a lot of the, there's some nationalities, there's some religions that at least I don't see a lot of at the hospital. And so that's why we pulled just a few, just sample kind of things to show the differences. So we're going to first talk about culture, and then we're going to talk about religion. And so these are some things that we just pulled out of this notebook. When you're thinking, so one of the things that quick story about that, we had a Korean patient, and the doctor and nurse called me up and said, hey, we got an issue here. He's got stage 4 cancer. Every time we go in the room, his kids are in there, and they're grown kids, and he just waves his hand at us, and like, get out of the room, get out of the room. And we think he just doesn't understand. We want to explain what's happened with him, and he just doesn't. It's like he's in denial. He's in denial. And so I'm like, so he doesn't speak any English at all? No. Does any of the family members speak any English? Nope. There's one son, and he's on his way. We've been talking to him on the phone. So anyway, I get one of my Korean pastors in town that I know pretty well, and he comes up to make a pastoral care visit, just a pastoral care visit. And he goes in to pray with the gentleman, and he says, and the guy tells the pastor, I have stage 4 cancer, all in Korean, and so he comes out, the pastor comes out, and the doctor and the charge nurse and his nurse and I are all standing in the hallway, kind of like waiting, like, what'd you find out? He's like, he knows everything that's happened with him. Yes, he knows. You're not supposed to talk about that stuff with other family members. His wife was always present when y'all came in. It's only the eldest son is the only one that can hear this news. And so there's always, that spokesperson thing or whatever. And so, but the pastor was very helpful, and it was all about that just interpretation and misunderstanding. What the doctor and nurse thought were just denial was really just don't talk about it right now with these others in the room. So you got other thing about illness. One of the things that on all of them that I think you as nurses need to know, one of the things that you will ask a lot, depending on what hospital you end up working at or what practice or whatever you choose to do with your nursing career, but pain. Y'all are all about pain and symptom management, right? And pain management. So one of the things I hear folks say all the time in the hospital is, so how's your pain level today? On a scale of 1 to 10, or those smiley, happy faces, or those sad faces, or so you try to measure people's pain. Well, different cultures express pain differently. And so in the Korean culture, they're not going to be moaning or wailing or crying or it's terrible. They're going to be very silent and stoic. And so you have to understand that to understand the pain level. My mom has a really high tolerance of pain. Really high tolerance of pain. She walked around for a week with a broken leg. I mean, a big break in her leg. And she limped a little, but we kept at. She was like, no, it's fine. It just hurts a little bit. Finally got her to go and get an x-ray. And the St. Francis was like, she's got a broken leg. I mean, how could she have walked around for a week? So when I'm in the hospital with my mom, the nurse will come in and say, so how's your pain level today? And she'll go, oh, it's about a 3. And I go, for me, that would be about a 10. I'm a wimp. She's not. She's really tough. And so everything you just have to take with a grain of salt and realize that people are different. Okay, a lot of things about the dying process. Again, y'all can read so we're not gonna go through all this. Organ donation, I've gotten to do a lot of things like that. That's one of the cool things I've gotten to do as a chaplain. In some of my training, I've gotten to see 2 autopsies. I got to actually see the heart, with an organ procurement. I got to be there for that. That was really incredible. And so I got to see lots of surgeries and stuff, so I'm like fascinated with all that stuff. They're like, we've never had a chaplain want to come see this. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So, all right, so this is some other stuff. All of this stuff is just helpful information for a nurse. And if you want the whole notebook, I can get you the whole notebook. All right, Middle Eastern. One of the things that you need to know about Middle Eastern, a lot of folks with communication, a lot of folks that don't speak English, there's a lot of nodding. And you need to realize, you think they're understanding, they are not understanding, you know. And speaking louder or enunciating like me going, I have singing bowls. You know, she didn't know. She didn't want to know what those knives were doing in there. She could see the shape of the knife. So again, if there's a grandmother, the grandmother would kind of be the spokesperson there. And there's something about illness and pain, and I'll read you a story in just a minute. So very expressive, you know. A lot of times you may have difficulty using that numerical scale. So 1 to 10, that doesn't mean anything, but a metaphor like it burns like fire or hurts like a knife, those kind of things may be more appropriate for them to describe the pain that they're having. Some other stuff. Our East Indian, again, these are just 3 of the main ones we kind of pulled out, because we see a lot of those at our hospital. Let's see what else. Food, you know, a lot of vegetarians, and so there's a lot of stuff with hot and cold food. Any questions about any of those things? One of the things that we deal with a lot at hospital with different cultures and different religious beliefs has to do with organ donation, as we talked about, and also autopsies. Who knows with autopsies? Anybody knows sort of one of the rules, one of the big things, especially where Judaism is concerned?
Gotta be buried in
Yep, gotta be buried within 24 hours typically because they don't embalm. What else? Anybody seen Passion of the Christ? That movie? There's a scene in that movie that is so cool. And when I saw it, I was like, yes, they got that right. Jesus is carrying the cross and he falls. And Mary, his mom, comes running out of the crowd. And what does she do? You might remember?
She wipes the blood up with you're talking about when
Yes,
she's like
yes,
found
yes,
with
yes.
women, she gets the blood and it's like, it's
She's like just with her scarf, just really. Why is she doing that? Anybody know? Why did Mel Gibson put that in the movie? It's really important, that one scene. Most of the other Jesus of Nazareth and all the other movies about the crucifixion or whatever, they don't show that.
Is it not kosher?
She bring it out in the bowl, didn't she? It's been a while since I watched it. It's a brutal
But
movie.
what was important about the blood spilling on the pavement? Anybody know?
It's supposed to spill on an altar and not.
Well, the biggest thing is, in Judaism, why would you think they don't embalm? What's embalming? Anybody know what that is?
Draining the blood.
Draining the blood from the body, right? Why do they have, so they don't embalm, they have to be buried within 24 hours. They really don't like autopsies unless there's one spiritual caveat with it that is allowed, that the rabbi will allow, is if there's a possibility, if they don't know why the person died, and there's a possibility of a genetic disorder that could affect the person's children, then they'll allow an autopsy. But there's something that I always have to get involved. I always have to call the pathologist and have to say, okay, this is a Jewish person, and now they know. They're like, oh, we got it, and the funeral home's coming from Atlanta, and da-da-da. Come on, I'm giving you all kinds of hints.
They like to be buried with everything in their body.
Yes, that's it. You have to be buried, in Judaism, you're to be buried with everything. And so the first phone call I ever made to the PAPA, I didn't know them, they didn't know me. And I'm like, okay, we've got an issue, there's gonna be an autopsy, it's supposed to happen at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And I need you to, and I didn't know how to say it medically. And I was kind of hesitating, and luckily he went, you need all the parts put back in. And I'm like, yes, that's what I need. And he said, got it covered. And so what we don't need, we'll just put back in the body cavity and just sew up. And I said, exactly. And so that's what, and we won't drain the blood. I said, exactly. And so that's why Mary did that, is she wiped out that blood, and guess what she did? I don't know if it shows this or not, but guess what she did with that scarf? Yes, exactly. So, so anyway, you got a lot of different things where, and I was just thinking about one of the things when we saw this autopsy up here before. So East India. All right, so cultural competency. What are some other things that you know of, that you've heard, that you are aware of because it's your culture? What are some things, just throw them out, what are some things that you want classmates to be aware of, or what you've heard that we need to be respectful of different cultures, different issues? Anything?
Prayer time for Islam.
Yep, how many times a day?
3 times a day?
5 times a day, yep, all right, good guess.
Sometimes I kind of like if I'm, like in the Middle East, I'm not supposed to look a man directly in the eyes, that's bad.
Correct. What are some other things? Yeah, like I would probably offend a lot of people because I talk loud because I've been a youth minister for years and I hadn't learned, I don't have a whistler. I don't know how to whistle. But, what about?
Some gestures, like a thumb up could be perfectly normal to us, you could be telling somebody to go.
Yeah, anybody know what this means in Mexico, or?
That's bad.
It's really bad. It doesn't mean okay. Let's just leave it at that. It doesn't mean okay. All right, let's say I'm American and I'm ignorant of culture and stuff, and y'all just happen to be Korean. What's happening right now that you would just be, oh my gosh, so offended? Exactly. You don't ever point the sole of your foot towards somebody. And so we do it all the time. I mean, that's how men sit a lot of times and they don't even think about it. But I don't know if y'all remember, but it's when, y'all were babies probably, but when George W. Bush was president, he was somewhere, I don't even remember where, and he was at a press conference, and somebody threw a shoe at him. Do y'all remember that? Has anybody seen that? He ducked, but and then the Secret Service like tackled the guy and stuff or whatever. And people were like, he threw a shoe. He could have had a gun or not, but he threw a shoe.
It was complimentary.
It wasn't complimentary. but some of the newscasters kind of laughed about it. What? He threw a shoe. Does anybody know why he threw the shoe?
One of the highest forms of disrespect in some
That's
cultures.
right. You got it. In that particular country, in that culture, all the folks from there were like, oh my God. That was the worst thing that could have happened. The worst thing. He just laughed it off. America just kind of blew it off. Why did he throw a shoe? Exactly. Did y'all hear what she said? Does anybody know what that's about? Reaching for something, or not even shaking with your left hand, but you know what would be worse? Is like if somebody asks for a like we're eating at a table together and there's the bread, oh, would you just give me a roll? Sure. Put a roll, with your left hand. What's that about? Come on, somebody say it. It's considered dirty. That's right. In some cultures, the right hand is what you eat with and drink with and shake and touch other things. The left hand is what you wipe yourself with after going to the bathroom. Yes, that's very insulting. Any others like that? Any other cultural things? Eye contact, you said, speaking too loudly, sole of the shoe, left hand.
A lot of Asian cultures bow.
Yes. What does a namaste mean? Do you know what kind of namaste means?
It's like it's a hello, goodbye, welcome. It's kind of like an all encompassing.
It is. It's a holy greeting. It's a holy greeting. Yeah.
It's like aloha.
Yeah. It means a little bit of everything. Okay, so I would add And what was the other rule? Bronze, exactly. All right, so being culturally competent. One of the things, the real key to attaining cultural competence is developing an honest curiosity about other people. Working with patients from a variety of ethnic groups can be challenging, but when healthcare practitioners make an effort to be sensitive to the cultural needs of their patients, it can add an interesting and pleasurable dimension to the work. It can reduce your own stress while increasing patient satisfaction. You know, we're all about patient satisfaction scores, and you'll hear a lot about that if you haven't already in the years to come. This in turn can lead to greater adherence, compliance, and ultimately better patient outcomes. Although many clinicians fear that cultural competence will just add one more thing to their already overburdened workload, in reality, it overwhelmingly makes for a win-win situation. And so cultural competence, to just be aware and how important those things and beliefs are, make a big difference in how you treat your patients. Okay, spiritual sensitivity. So we're going to run through some of this really quick. I'll be glad to answer whatever questions I can. I just kind of pulled sort of the major religions. There are lots of other religions in the world. And so let me just take a quick poll so I know, and you can just kind of raise your hand if you don't want to, you know, whatever. But do we have anybody, any Muslims? How about Hindus? Jewish folks? Christians? All right, Protestants? Catholic? Do you know what Protestant is? Do you know what okay, all right, non-denominational? Okay, so, all right. So a whole lot of people raise their hand for Christian, and then nobody raised their hand. So let's try, how many Catholics, Roman Catholics? Greek Orthodox? Eastern Orthodox? Protestant? That should be everybody else. Okay, so all right, the other people. Jehovah's Witness. Because I'm going to get any of you people to help me. Christian Scientist? Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Okay, all right, so whatever I say, you'll believe. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so here we go. All right, so Islam. There are basically 5 pillars of Islam. Without looking, what are the 5? Anybody know any of them? Somebody said it earlier. Pray how many times a day? 5, that's one of them. What's another one? Pilgrimage to Mecca, if they can afford it and physically able. Otherwise, they don't have to, but they're supposed to go once, at least once in their lifetime. Pilgrimage to Mecca. What else? There's something that happens a month. Ramadan, that's right. Fasting for a month. Okay, they participate in Ramadan once a year. Yes. And what? And, all right. And so what in a lot of churches and in Judaism, so Judeo-Christian, there is something called the what? It's 10%. The tithe. The tithe. That's sort of what Judeo-Christians believe. In Islam, there's also tithing and giving to the poor and helping. All right. So there's one more. Faith. And faith is a good broad category. It's basically the first one. It's the most important pillar of Islam. There is one true God. One true God. Allah. And so you've got and it's a declaration of faith. So whoever said faith, extra credit. All right. So to declare there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger. The prayer, worship 5 times a day. Charitable contribution is 2.5. Right? Gosh, they get it off easy, don't they? We got to do 10%. Do you know what's interesting to me as being a minister, and everything is by donation, in the church, and that's what kept the lights on and paid the salaries and all that kind of stuff. People define 10% in different ways. Figure that out. It's 10% after you pay all your bills. What's left is 10% of net. Some people say it's 10% of gross. It just varies. A lot of churches pastors don't really define that for people. So 10% can be anything you want it to be, basically. 2.5% is, my understanding is it's of everything. Everything. Everything you own. Everything. That's a lot. So, then you've got Ramadan, and then you've got the pilgrimage to Mecca. Okay, these are some of the other beliefs. you may or may not know. It's all in your PowerPoint, you can read. These are some of the daily practices. This is what they believe about death and dying. There are 5 steps in the burial procedure. Those are some of the washing of the body. That was what we were talking about earlier. It's forbidden to wail, beat the breast, slap the anything, but their shedding of tears is okay. Food. It's a lot of, there's a whole lot of stuff. What does this remind you of?
Jewish.
Exactly. So there's a whole lot of, pork is a problem. Alcohol, things like that. Holy festivals, all of those things. So these are some other stuff. All right, Hinduism. What do you know about Hinduism? Anybody know anything?
Worship multiple gods.
I'm not
It's
able to read.
really
What
like-
now?
Multiple gods.
Multiple gods. How many? Anybody know?
300 and something.
300 and something gods. Anybody have another guess? 1,000? 1,000? Did you say 1,000? 1,500? Any other guesses?
Isn't there like 3 main ones though, and then others are like branches?
Yep.
It's a lot like Greek
Yeah.
mythology.
Brahma. You got Ganesh. You
A lot
got.
of them, I feel like they pick one god and then they just believe in like the different representations of that one god.
That's a great.
Because my friend is Hindu,
Yep.
and we talk about God like it's just one person.
When you, I've been to India and twice, and one of the things that we were taught and learned about Hinduism is that it's about 200,000 gods and
But
different
they don't
representations.
believe in all of them.
No, just different representations. And so, but you're right, there are kind of several manifestations. So, all right, so it's a wide variety. All right, so there we go, about euthanasia and things like that. All right, so, and my understanding is I probably need to change this title. I think Mormonism is not really what the proper term is, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I need to change that, so I apologize. But lots of things with coffee and tea and alcohol. All right, so before we do that, a couple of, all right, okay with time. All right, one of the things that I know we went flying through that stuff, but again, you can read, and this is stuff for you to kind of take on later. This is a wonderful book. It's called Caring for Patients from Different Cultures. This is the 5th edition that I have. There may be a 6th edition out now. It's by Jerry Ann Galanti, Galanti. This is where these stories are coming from that I'm about to share with you, and they are some very, very good stories, I think. Okay, some of them are funny, some of them are sad. All right, so it was a Chinese doctor, surgeon, that was about to do surgery, and he called the next day, and so he called up to the patient's room to find out how they were doing. The surgery was scheduled first thing in the morning, and so the Chinese doctor is asking how, how are you doing or whatever, and the patient says, well, I'm getting a little cold feet, Well, Chinese doctor didn't understand what that meant, so, oh, okay, we'll take care of that. Don't worry about that, we'll take care of that. Hang on. Ordered all these vascular tests to be run that night because just wasn't familiar with the term cold feet, and so prior to surgery. There was a Korean doctor that went, anesthesiologist that went into the pre-op area. These are all true stories. She is a nurse that wrote this book, and so anesthesiologist goes into pre-op, starts talking to the patient before they put him under, and says it was they were doing something with their knee, a knee operation, and so the patient just kind of joking around with the anesthesiologist says, well, doc, I'm not going to kick the bucket. I'm not going to kick the bucket. And the doctor was like, oh, yes, you'll be able to kick the bucket. Yes, no problem. You'll make sure that you kick the bucket, And so the patient's like, well, I don't want to have surgery again. So this is a young, okay, I'm not going to use the ethnicity. A young woman became angry, because it should be offensive, but a young woman became very angry because she'd gotten pregnant using birth control pills. So she goes in to see her doctor, And she's very upset, and she said she just does not understand why they didn't work. She had used them just as her friend had told her. She had inserted them into her vagina, and she wasn't sure why they did not work. So, all right, there's. Y'all did not laugh nearly like I thought you would. Well, they did So, I guess, so they didn't come out, I don't know. So, all right, there's an English couple. Okay, anybody South African or British or? In here? All right, I had some of our Australian. I had somebody in the class once who's, she's one of our, she works in our cardiac rehab area, and she's from Australia. And she was in the class, and I start this story, and she just burst out laughing. She was like, I've been telling my coworkers that forever, and they do not believe me. I'm so glad you're saying this. Okay, so there's an English couple, British couple, and the husband is the patient, and the nurse comes in and says, if you would just please just slide over to the edge of the bed, I'm going to give you a shot in your fanny. Anybody know what the word fanny means? But that's what you think, right? Not in Britain, Australia, or South Africa. The word fanny means woman's vagina. So the wife busts out laughing. The man is embarrassed. You know, he's like, you're going to give me a shot. Where? You know? And so it's a very crude term, but in those countries. And so one of the things that she would tell her colleagues would, you know, this cardiac rehab is where they have all the treadmills and bicycle, all the exercise stuff that people do after heart surgery as they're rehabbing and stuff. And some of, you know, in America, and especially in the South, you know, you think the word fanny would be much more acceptable than, you know, stick your butt in or whatever when they're exercising or doing whatever. And so her colleagues would always use the word fanny for people, and she would just go, quit saying that word, it's a bad word. And they're like, what are y'all talking about? They didn't believe her, but it's true. Okay, there's a Hispanic male patient, and he comes to the emergency department, and he had accidentally taken a drug overdose when he misinterpreted, so this is all about communication, he misinterpreted the written instructions on his medicine. On his medicine, who speaks Spanish? Who can count to 10 in Spanish? Okay, good. Who can count to 12 in Spanish? All right, good. So it was misinterpreted. Does anybody know where I'm going with this? So on the medication it said take once a day. Once a day. In Spanish, what is that? Once. How many times was he taking it? 11 times a day. 11 times a day. So do you understand this? Yes. Got it. But I guess nobody went, not 11. So, all right. This is a very famous story, but I'm wasn't in the medical careers, medical thing, so I've not heard it, but it's a very sad story. Okay, this is the famous story of a patient named Willie Ramirez, who he lost consciousness several hours after eating a hamburger. His Cuban family believed that the bad hamburger had caused him to get sick. In Spanish, this reaction can be described as intoxicado. Intoxicado. Among Cubans, intoxicado is a kind of all-encompassing word, kind of like aloha, or whatever. It means a little bit of everything, but there's something wrong with him. We think it's because of something he ate or drank. It could be poison, it could be food poison, it could be something, but something because he ate or drank. It could be an allergic reaction, but he's now unconscious and we don't know why. And he ate a hamburger 2 hours earlier, you know, so that's what that word means, intoxicado. What does that sound like? Intoxicated. Sure does, doesn't it? All right, so Willie was erroneously treated for drug intoxication because a bilingual family friend who came to the hospital because none of the family spoke English. So they got a friend to come meet him up there, And the friend knew just enough to get in trouble. They did not use an interpreter, a medical interpreter. They did not use Seracom or any of the interpretive services that most hospitals use. So he used the friend used the English word intoxicated by mistake, believing that the word, when the family's saying intoxicado, he thinks they mean the same thing in English, so intoxicated. Unfortunately, this was a case where a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of English, a little bit of Spanish is a really dangerous thing. Had they not been bilingual, the medical staff probably would have used a professional medical interpreter and might not have led to the misdiagnosis. They would have looked for the real reason Willie had become unconscious, a brain aneurysm. They would have done a CT scan. The aneurysm was finally discovered and surgically repaired 36 hours later. What happens 36 hours later? Not brain dead, but he is quadriplegic today because of that one word, that misdiagnosis. So there's a story of a Jewish young woman who was in a car accident, and they bring her by accident, pretty bad car accident. They bring her by ambulance to the hospital, to the emergency room. They work on her for some time, the doctors, the nurses, the anesthesia, everybody, and they can't save her. They contact the family gets there pretty quickly. They're in a consultation room waiting to hear if their daughter's alive or not. And the doctor comes out and, in his scrubs after just working on the young woman and tells the mom and dad that they couldn't save her. He does a very nice job of explaining what happened or what they could happen and all that they did, they couldn't save her. And so the family goes in and sees her and everything. And as they start to leave, the doctor is headed to the locker room to change clothes. And the father of this young woman who's passed away stops the doctor and says, "Can I please have your clothes?" And the doctor's like, "Why do you want my scrubs?" What do you think was on the scrubs? Blood. The daughter's blood, exactly. So of course he goes in, changes into a fresh set of scrubs, and gives all the. And they also wanted, because he said, "Is that my daughter's blood?" And absolutely it is. And so because they're gonna what? Bury them with the body. Okay. Let's see. Some other ones. Do y'all know about there was a woman who Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she was about to have surgery. And what do they wear under their clothing? Do you guys know? Special underwear. Did everybody know that? You don't know that? It's special garments. It's a spiritual garment. When they reach a certain level of spirituality, they get this underwear garment. And so she refused to take off the garment. She was having abdomen surgery, and the surgeon wouldn't do it. And so finally they went back and forth, and it gets to be a pretty dangerous situation. She has to have the surgery, and so finally they agree, and she agrees that if she can just pull it down and have it around her ankles, and they drape it and everything, but she is still in contact with her body. But a chaplain gets pulled in, and they have to figure all this out because she's not giving an inch. She's not taking it off for fear that she'll die and not have it on. So I've had a couple of situations when I was at St. Francis where we had somebody come in and they passed away in the ER, and they will not let any of the family or anybody in until they call the bishop to come and dress the man in the underwear, and then people can come in and stuff. So let's see, there's one of the things that we there's some cultures that there's some little strands on babies' wrists that are tied on. Anybody know what those mean? Or what those are for? The nurse tried to come in and cut them off. They're supposed to fall off on their own. And basically it's, and they were just trying to cut them off because they were about to insert an IV line. But, and then, so they didn't cut them off, and then they, where are a lot of, kind of gave it away. IVs in babies are started a lot of times in the scalp because the veins are so small and whatever. So they were going to do the IV here, and of course the family got really upset because with Cambodians, the head is believed to be the seat of life. And holes in, if they put a hole to put an IV line, the soul can escape, is what the belief is. And so, and the strings around the wrist are believed to tie the soul to the body. And so if you cut them off, that could be a problem. You've probably seen other people in other religious beliefs where you have a string, and as long as it falls off on its own, it's okay, but you're not ever supposed to cut them off. What now?
What religion was that again?
That was Cambodian, that was just Cambodian. So, what are some, can you think of any other, what questions do you have?
Wouldn't Buddhism be considered a formal, the right word here? It's not really a religion, it's more of a belief.
A lot of people think of Buddhism as a philosophy of life.
Well,
And so I don't know if you've met, I've met several people who were practicing Hindu, but were also Buddhist in their way of life. And so there are people that practice Buddhism as a religion, like Buddhist monks and such, but a lot of people can be one religion, can practice one spiritual religion, and then be Buddhist as a way or philosophy of life. You know, as far as pacifists, every living creature having, a soul, every living creature, don't kill a roach, things like that, so. Good question. Other questions, comments? Or insight, other things like that you kind of heard and wonder about? Yes?
So with your patients who don't show or verbalize pain, how do you need to treat them, and how do you treat them if they don't tell you?
How do you tell? How do you tell if somebody's unconscious? How do you tell somebody's in pain if they're unconscious? Sometimes you can grimace, the facial expressions. What happens to the vitals? A lot of times blood pressure goes up, heart rates increase, things like that. So that's one way that I hear that nurses do it, especially if the person doesn't speak English or they don't express pain. What are some, I think you have to watch their facial expressions a lot. And if all of a sudden you're talking to them and they quit talking, and they're kind of gripping, you can see that jaw, are you in pain? They may not, they may tell you they're in pain, they're just not gonna express it a lot. There's another story that talks about pain. I'm glad you just will not any of that. Give me a second to find it. Here it is. Lily was a 48-year-old woman from the Middle East. She was in a county hospital to have surgery for gallstones. Sandy, her nurse, was caring for her prior to surgery. Sandy cared for Lily for 3 nights and described them as a nightmare. Lily, again, is what? Middle Eastern. How do Middle Easterners express pain? Very expressive. Yep, and loud. The stereotype. Okay? All right? Lily did nothing but moan and groan and demand pain medication. She pushed the call light continually. Sandy did her job for those 3 nights, 12-hour shifts, but she resented Lily's behavior. She chalked it up, well, she's just one of those Middle Easterners that are very expressive in the way they express pain. They are often demanding, and they are loud, and they express their pain freely. She looked forward to Lily's surgery at last. Her gallstones would be removed, and she could go home and be out of her hair. So, Sandy, after working those 3 nights, she was off 3 days and then came back. And when she returned to work a few days later, she learned that Lily did not have gallstones after all. When the surgeons opened her up, they discovered that cancer had invaded her entire gastrointestinal system. She died on the operating table. Sandy's heart sank. She had stereotyped Lily as just another loud, complaining Middle Easterner. It turned out she had been moaning and groaning and requesting pain medication not because she was Middle Eastern, but because she was riddled with cancer and in excruciating pain. It was an important lesson for Sandy about the dangers of stereotyping. It's also an important lesson for all of us. So the challenge is exactly your question. How do you tell when someone is really in pain, or if somebody is really in pain and they're not expressing it at all? And so that's the hard part about being a nurse. because respiratory, therapy, all the physical therapy, occupational therapy, the docs, everybody else is gonna be looking to you to help determine the pain level of this patient. And one of our thing is symptom, as a nurse, is symptom management, right? And making sure that you take care of their pain. So, other questions, comments? All right. Why did Jesus, Moses, and Buddha and Muhammad cross the road? All right, what joke does that remind you of? Why did the chicken cross the road, right? It's been around for centuries. Not centuries, but a long, long time. So, all right, it first appeared, by the way, in 1847. Why did the chicken cross the road? In the New York Magazine. By 1890, the joke was so well known that there are all kinds of variations of it, okay? All right, so why is it funny to ask about Jesus, Moses, the Buddha, Muhammad crossing the road? Before looking at a punchline, close your eyes. Just for fun, imagine the scene. 4 of history's greatest religious leaders, not fighting, not arguing, not damning or condemning one another, not launching crusades or jihads, but walking together, moving together, leading together. I picture the Beatles, walking across Abbey Road, that album cover, I picture, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, and Moses crossing that road. Keep your eyes closed. Doesn't that already reverse some of our expectations? Doesn't that reversal expose our unspoken expectation that different religions are inherently and unchangeably incompatible, disharmonious, fractious, and hostile toward one another? That image of those 4 religious leaders crossing the road together surprises and interests us because it puts the 4 in a similar situation, in a common predicament. Well, you can open your eyes. Whatever the answer is, it will be the same for all of them. Why did they cross the road? It'll perhaps even render them in our own minds as companions rather than competitors. That possibly it makes the claim on all of us who followed one of those religious leaders. And since a lot of you raised your hand, or most of you raised your hand, if you're a Christian like me, whatever sort, Catholic, Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, conservative, liberal, moderate, traditional, whatever, if you love Jesus, if you know and have confidence in Him, then that whole, you think those biblical terms, there's a preacher here, Word of God, God made flesh, all of this, Son of God, all of the terms, the names that we call Christ, hopefully you will seriously consider how you think Christ would treat Muhammad, Moses, Buddha, if they came to a crosswalk together. I know for me, it's about the golden rule, and the silver rule, and the bronze rule. I don't think any of those guys would be pushing the other one out of the way to get ahead. I don't think they would be, trying to stomp on one or whatever. I think they would be trying to talk to one another and learn about each other. So, in the end of the day, that's, I think, what our job is as healthcare professionals. Regardless of your own beliefs, to treat everybody with dignity and respect, try to understand the culture they come from and their beliefs, going back to those first vignettes, that terrible acting, that first cover, oh my gosh, you've been abused, I need to report this to the police, whatever. And then it was like, the second one, you are going to die, you have terminal cancer, Really? And then the last one, when she says, well, whenever y'all figure it out, they figured it out, she's the one that hadn't figured it out or whatever, so, with the baby. And so, just know that sometimes things we do and say, even without meaning it, can be offensive. And then that wall comes up. And part of that word, that first word I used was compassion. How many of you are becoming a nurse because you have that gift of compassion? I think to go into healthcare, you have to have some compassion in you to want to help. You know, and I kind of, if I hadn't have said at the beginning, you can't say, you know, I want to help others, probably most of you would have said, you know, I like to help people. I want to make a difference. Those are some pretty common answers for nurses. Because you're at bedside, you're the front line. You're the ones that spend more time with your patients, even when you have 6 on the floor, and even when you're running from place to place and you have meds to give and all that, you are spending more time at bedside than anybody else. And so they're going to trust you. You're going to build a relationship with those patients. You're going to hurt when they pass away. But you're going to celebrate when they get to go home. Then you get to go home 12 hours later. So it's going to be important for you to just continue to try to learn as much as you can about other people. If you have an opportunity, travel, see the world, meet people firsthand in their own environment. You know, learn to speak other languages, learn to understand other religions. There are lots of books and stuff that I've got on world religions and all kinds of stuff. If you've never seen a Quran, here's a Quran. If you've never seen the Book of Mormon, if you've never seen a Torah, and you know, what's the Talmud? You might know what the Talmud is? It's basically the commentary. It's all the laws. How many Jewish laws are there? Lots, like 600 and something, you know. There are a lot of dietary laws. There are a lot of things, you know, understanding just about other religions and understanding those 5 pillars of Islam. That's important to understand why there are differences and stuff. All right, to close out. Two of my heroes, I have 3 major heroes. One is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I love what he was about. And I love the I Have a Dream speech. It's my favorite speech ever given, anytime. I love Mother Teresa was one of my heroes. I wanted to meet her. She died before I could get to India, but she was on my bucket list. Didn't get to do that one. And the other was the Dalai Lama. And I have gotten to meet the Dalai Lama before. He used to come to Emory. He has a big connection with the Carter Center in Emory in Atlanta, and would come and speak. And so I got to meet him once. And I got this that I think is pretty cool. The paradox, and after going to Nepal, I really want to go to Lhasa at some point, and don't know that I'll ever get there. And he's in India somewhere in exile anyway, but he comes to the U.S. some. This is the paradox of our age. I think it's very cool. Anyway, it's we have bigger houses but smaller families, more conveniences but less time. We have more degrees but less sense, more knowledge but less judgment, more experts but more problems, more medicines but less healthiness. We've been all the way to the moon and back, but we have trouble crossing the street to meet the new neighbor. We built more computers to hold more information to produce more copies than ever, but we have less communication. We have become long on quantity and short on quality. These are times of fast foods but slow digestion, tall man but short character, steep profits but shallow relationships. It's a time when there is much in the window but nothing in the room. That's His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. I love those interviews that Barbara Walters does, you know, the 5 most fascinating people or whatever. She does them in the end of the year, always before New Year's kind of stuff. Well, at one point she interviewed the Dalai Lama. And I was watching it, and this is why I thought, I like this guy. You know, I don't know what all, Buddhism is about and stuff, but I really like some of his philosophy. And she asked him, he's sitting there, he's got a great sense of humor. When I got to hear him firsthand, he just has a wonderful sense of humor and jokes around a lot and stuff. And he said, she had asked him a bunch of questions, and then at the end she said, so, do you believe you're God? And everybody's like, what's he going to say? You know, do you believe you're God? And he looked at her, and he busted out laughing. And he said, of course not. I wear spectacles. If I was God, I'd have perfect eyesight. Of course I'm not God. And And she busted out laughing, the cameraman busted out laughing, you know, and I went, what a great answer. You know, because a lot of people that follow him and believe he's God, and he's like, no, I'm not God. You know, I just thought that was a neat answer. So, I think we have a lot to learn from each other, and it is now 10 o'clock. Any